Monday edition, away we go. It's Mr. Relevant. I'm Alex Strouf with you from the Gruber offices. One call, that's all studio at the Avenue in beautiful downtown Milwaukee. Joshie DiMaggio is here as always. Producer Tiny Hands Hunter Vaughn back at the Everlight Solar Studio in downtown Madison. Lot of Packers stuff to get into as we approach what I think is going to be a really absurd offseason. We are 1 week away, almost on the dot, away from the legal tampering / negotiation period. So deals will begin being announced next Monday, next Wednesday, when teams and players can officially agree and sign to those new contracts. But we are a week away from the chaos that will be free agency and the NFL offseason. Dominoes beginning to fall. We talked about Matthew Stafford last week, who is going to return to be the quarterback of the Los Angeles Rams over the weekend, which we will get into in just a second. We see the Washington Commanders getting better offensively by acquiring the services of Deebo Samuel. Joshie's already given me a face, which means this is going to be a fun ride. What's up, Joshie? How are you?
Are we sure they're better because of Deebo Samuel?
Yeah, I mean, I think they are.
Did we see Deebo Samuel last year?
Yeah, but
if you watched him?
Look, he's not Deebo Samuel of 3 years ago. I understand that. But I think undeniably he can be a weapon for them.
Okay.
That's all you got, Joshie?
We'll see.
Just K?
Yeah.
I mean, the guy's dust.
Agreed.
The guy's dust.
Look, I mean, amongst other things, that's a big reason I didn't want him. I didn't want the Packers to go after him, which I didn't expect them to.
It won't make the top 50 important moves this offseason.
Ooh, I don't know about that.
Book it.
Top 50?
50.
I mean, it has the potential to be a top 10 move. Will it be?
That's what I think of that. Is that better, Hunter?
Yes, actually. Thank you.
Joshie's chosen violence right out of the gates today, which makes me kind of happy. I think we're in for a treat today. We'll get into it a little bit more in terms of the Commanders and why they made that move and why I think it is a good move for them overall. Does it completely move the needle for a team that was already in the NFC Championship game? Yeah, probably not. But it's certainly an attempt at getting better and trying to take that next step, which I think is a lesson the Packers can take from what the Commanders did over the weekend. We will get into some of the offseason stuff that I think is to come. We will talk about the newest, maybe not newest chapter, but the newest angle on the Davante Adams news. And the Packers season ticket thing, we'll get into that because I'm sure Joshie just loves ticket hikes. Mm-hmm. Everybody paying more money, but Joshie's a huge fan of that. So we'll get into that. Also 2 weeks away, 13 days away from Selection Sunday, March Madness is on the way. We will take a look at what happened over the weekend for Marquette and Wisconsin, what is to come as we wrap up the regular season. The regular season in the books for the Horizon League. Joshie, I was over at the UW-Milwaukee game on Saturday. They played Detroit Mercy. They won by a lot. I sat courtside.
Cool.
Had a good time. Thank you. Any thoughts?
I cleaned my house, mopped my floors, and those are more desirable things for me to be doing.
You weren't going to use the rip your fingernails out with the pliers line here?
No. This was, I did chores around the house, and that was more fulfilling to me than attending Detroit Mercy.
All right.
How many players have Detroit Mercy ever put into the NBA?
I bet more than zero. I can certainly look that up for you, though.
I'll look it up. You just do the show.
I am doing the show. Terry Tyler, Willie Green, Dave.
Good luck.
DeBouchier. When's the most recent one? Paris Bass got drafted in 2017. Ray McCallum in 2013. Not many is the answer, Joshie.
Yeah,
Not many. Only 4 in this millennium. So there you have it. Detroit Mercy. Good school, though. Good school. Okay, let's get into this news. The Deebo Samuel news came out Saturday as the Washington Commanders and the San Francisco 49ers are in agreement on a deal that would send wide receiver Deebo Samuel to the Washington Commanders. A reminder, this Washington Commanders team was in the NFC Championship game this last season. They are a team that went from having the number 2 overall pick in last year's draft to being the number 2 team in the NFC. Just like that. when you put a little urgency on roster reconstruction, sometimes it works out, and it did last year for the Washington Commanders. Also helped that they hit on the quarterback position with that number 2 overall pick with the Rookie of the Year, Jaden Daniels. But let the story be the story. The Commanders are a team that is competing in the NFC. They are a team that is viewed, at least as of right now, as better than the Green Bay Packers. They made it 2 rounds further. They were alive in the NFC Championship game, although the Eagles kind of won that pretty demandingly, but they were still there. This is a team that looks at what they did a year ago, says, although we got beat pretty good in the NFC Championship game, we were only 1 game away. So what do we need? How about another weapon for our young quarterback in Jaden Daniels? So they add a wide receiver like Deebo Samuel, who, to Josh's point at the top, certainly is not what he once was. But couldn't you make that case for Zach Ertz? Couldn't you make that case for Austin Eckler? Couldn't you make that case for all those guys that played in the NFC Championship game a year ago?
I mean, Zach Ertz got 14 targets, and that was by design for the Eagles. Mm-hmm. Let's go to the old, slow, decrepit guy that will cause your offense to look like it can't move. Like, Austin Eckler wasn't a weapon. Zach Ertz wasn't a weapon. They were bodies. Ben Sims would do what Zach Ertz did.
But here's the thing, Joshy. Ben Sims, A, hasn't done what Zach Ertz did. And B,
given the opportunity that Zach Ertz had.
But let's not shortchange him. They were in the NFC Championship game.
Yeah, and it was largely in part to one singular player. And maybe a touch of Terry McLaurin. That team has a long ways to go, and I know they were in the NFC Championship game. I would bet a heavy amount that they don't make it back.
I understand that. But for their contingency, for their front office to say, hey, we were there, what can we do to upgrade? Free agency isn't even open yet. And that's a team, by the way, with a top 5 cap room coming off of an NFC Championship game. They said, we don't need a 5th-round pick. Let's send it to San Francisco, and let's get a guy who's had some really good years in the NFL, in Deebo Samuel, who can maybe pack a little bit of a spark for this Commanders offense. I'm not saying this is an earth-shaking move.
You're under earth-shaking. You're earth rumble. You're doing for the Bears what you did last year right now for the Commies.
Very different, A.
Well, right. It's opposite.
And I'm not saying, this makes the Commanders the Super Bowl favorite.
Ooh, they're dangerous. Best weapons. Please.
I did do that for the Bears.
Yeah.
You're not wrong. I won't argue. But the point is, the free agency hasn't even begun. The draft hasn't begun.
Correct.
This is a team that's already saying, hey, we were close. We want to get closer. We want to be in that dance. So they're making moves now. And that's the important part. I don't care who it is. The Deebo Samuel part is not the important part here.
That's where you get yourself into trouble. I don't care who it is. We can't mistake action for smart moves. Just because you're doing something doesn't mean you're getting materially better. You're spending your cap wisely. There's ways to build teams.
Again, I don't disagree with any of that. I'm not saying this is a great move.
I hate when Kyle Wallace does this to you. But when he says the Gen Z, this is just give me something. This is what you want right now. You don't care the result. You don't care if it makes a lot of sense or not. I want something to look at and point at. That's what you're doing to me right now.
That's not exactly what I'm doing to you.
Things. Give me move my attention along. That's where you're at right now.
No. I am to the point of, hey, this is a team that has gone further than Jordan Love ever has, and they're already saying, hey, how do we get better? I'm not saying they got significantly better, but I think internally they feel like this is a needle mover for them,
every
which
team
is
trying
fine.
To get better every offseason?
I would hope so. But do the Packers always make moves that make you go, oh, yeah, they're significantly better? The answer is no. The answer objectively is no.
Not always, but I would say Brian Gutekunst has made me feel that way more often than Ted Thompson did.
Shorter tenure, so sure. I hear you.
Yeah.
Right, 2019 and last season are obviously two great examples of that.
I mean, Ted Thompson would be aghast at the amount that he's given out in free agency. In total numbers.
The way that cap has moved.
He'd be appalled.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, the way the cap has moved is absurd, right? Seeing Isaiah McDuffie get a 2-year, $8 million deal and going, wait a minute, that's really not that much money anymore.
No, $280 million to spend. Almost $100 million in 5 years. It's crazy.
Yeah.
And then wasn't there a shrink in there as well? I believe one of the COVID year.
I think it stayed steady. I don't think it shrunk.
It either stayed steady or went down to like a small...
Oh, maybe it was a hair, yeah.
Indecipherable amount. But, I mean, that thing it's... We all have to adjust our numbers. Like, people say, well, you're not going to pay that guy $20 million. And it's like, well, I mean, half the league's going to be getting that at some point or sooner or later here because the numbers are so high.
So my ultimate point here, Josh.
Get to it, would you?
Well, I have. I think it's important to view that your competition thinks they are getting better, and they're already doing it. They're already taking what they view as a swing. Right?
Doesn't it suffice to say... Hearing the Packers linked to, no matter how much you want to believe it, because you can question Corbin, whoever that
Corbin Case Smith, yeah.
Yeah, you can question his sources, but where there's smoke, there's fire.
Typically.
So it might not be offer on the table, and it's definitely not the 23rd overall pick in the 2025 NFL draft. I can tell you that right now, Corbin.
I would agree.
But then also we got the Rob Domofsky of the Packers are going to be players. And our link to your guy, the number one cornerback that's available via PFF's rankings of all the free agents. Wouldn't that mean that stuff's coming for the Packers? Like, when we do off seasons around here, aside from like last year where it kind of shocked us, we invent things to talk about in terms of, well, this person's on the market. Do you think the Packers should be interested? And like the best we can get is, well, the Packers were in the mix. I think we're past just the mix conversation for the Packers.
I think this year you're right. Right. This seems
and
like
it's 2 years running now.
Yeah, this seems again like a year like it was last year, where we might be shocked a week from today, or 8 days from today, or 9 days from today when free agency officially opens next Wednesday. I think we are now to a point where the Packers need to be active. And that's why I bring up the Deebo Samuel move. I'm not saying the Commanders went from the 8th best odds to Super Bowl favorites because of this move. But it is important to look at what the teams that you view as competition. And Josh, you'd be lying to me if you said the Commanders aren't real competition. It was a team that was in the NFC Championship game. And they are already saying, hey, we need to get better because we weren't good enough. And they are making moves right now, right? They hear a wide receiver that has had a good track record is available. They go out and trade a 5th-round pick for him. And this seems like it is going to be a monumental offseason because there is going to be a ton of trades, right? Look at the quarterback market. Now, Matthew Stafford is a piece that's not going to be touched. Sam Darnold's a free agent. Aaron Rodgers will be a free agent. You're going to have big quarterback names move around. When you look at some of the other positions, right? T. Higgins ultimately going to be franchise tagged, may be traded. But you hear of all these big possible trade targets. Cooper Kupp, Tyreek Hill, Trey Hendrickson, Max Crosby, Myles Garrett. There's going to be movement in the trade market. And obviously, we spent a ton of time on free agency and some of the names that are available there. You mentioned a guy like DJ Reed, the top corner available. There's some, Zach Baun, who obviously had a great coming out season for the Philadelphia Eagles, is going to be viewed as one of the top linebackers on the open market. There are names out there. And the Packers need to be active because it feels like one of those off seasons where if you're not active, you're going to get left behind. It's back-to-back years the Packers, despite making a 2-win improvement in 2024, were the 7th seed in the NFC. Probably not what you want to be if you want to go to the Super Bowl. You're going to need to win more games. You're going to need to upgrade your roster. There's some obvious holes, right? And we'll talk about Davante Adams again here in a second. Wide receiver happens to be one of those holes. Is last week we talked about the DK Metcalf rumors and if the Packers could trade for a top receiver. We've talked all offseason since the Packers were eliminated about Myles Garrett and Max Crosby and Trey Hendrickson and who would be available for a premier pick at edge rusher. And of course, corner is going to be a position of need for the Green Bay Packers if they decide, and ultimately I think they will decide, to move on from Jair Alexander. This is an offseason where the Packers can't afford to get left behind the pack. They have to move towards the front of the pack even more so than they already are as a young, up-and-coming team who has high hopes, rightfully so. But some moves need to be made here over the course of the next week and a half where you go, Okay, they are players in free agency like Rob Domofsky has heard from some agents. They are making the moves to stay with the pack and not get left behind the pack. This cannot be an offseason where you hold steady. It just can't be.
I guess maybe where we're missing each other here is I took Brian Gutekunst, we need to show urgency at face value. I know Goody's lied to us before.
Yes.
In some spots where you can determine how egregious you think the lie was, but when he said that they planned to be urgent, I took it at face value. It makes sense. The Packers don't have a lot of dead money. They don't have a lot of contracts that are sort of hanging out there. We see Jair Alexander already announced as being someone the Packers are looking to trade, not even granting him the right to seek his own trade. They are going to do the trading themselves. Then you get the DK Metcalf news. Then you get the news in terms of Isaiah McDuffie already coming back. I think the Packers have been linked to. The fact that DJ Reed was named by Rob Domofsky and Wilde and Tausch to me is like,
hello.
Yeah, something's going on here. The Packers have clearly pushed their chips towards action. I don't think Brian Gutekunst views going into his 8th season as GM as we just need to ride this out and let this continue. I think that's what last year was. We're figuring out who belongs, who doesn't, who's going to continue to excel, and who should we be thinking to move on from. I think the fact that a young wide receiver was named also means that probably the market's open for Romeo Doubs, for them to either acquire assets or a swap of a player, like the change of scenery type thing. I've taken all of what I've seen and heard I think the Packers are going to be major players in the trade market. Now, the trade market is a trade market. Either it's a good price, it's a fair price, and it makes sense because there's no way. Listen, if Goody put on the table today to trade a first-round pick and Romeo Doubs for DK Metcalf and fourth back, the Seahawks snap yes. But does that make sense for the Packers as they continue to try and not build a better team just this year, but a better team for the next 3, 4, 5 years that you have Jordan Love under contract? There's a clear window here, and maybe it's been a pivot for team building in Green Bay. And what we're seeing now, and even a little bit of last year, is a clear shift of we aren't just going to try to be good for 10 years. We're going to try and, within our means, not go above and beyond, but within our means, without making a big deal out of it, try and get better and make a serious run at the Super Bowl. I've taken all that at face value. And I think the Packers are going to, there's going to be, if we set the over-under trades at 1.5, are you taking the over or the under? Because the Jair thing lingers, which still very much could be a release.
I think it likely will be. I would probably put it at the under.
Seeing what Deebo went for kind of gave me a little belief that there might be a 6th-round pick involved. I don't know, though. It's hard for me. Jason Wilde told you guys, Homer Hour, all of us, some guys were saying as high as 3rd or 4th round pick, which to me was stunning.
Yeah, I just don't. Look, there might be belief around the league that Jair still got some tread on the tires. But the concerning part, obviously, is that he's only played half the available games the last 2 seasons.
Technically, if we actually get into the numbers.
Yeah, it's close to 50% of the games the last 2 or 3 years. So if you are going to get something for him, and by the way, Jair's cap hit this upcoming season is over $25 million. That ranks number 3 on the Packers roster. I would accept a 7th-round pick. It's the old get something rather than nothing.
Something rather than nothing, yes.
Right?
Now, you do have to factor in the potential of, Goody loves his compensatory picks.
He does.
But I don't know. To me, if Jair gets released, his contract is going to be extremely incentive-laden.
Oh, it has to be.
It's literally playing time.
Yeah, it's going to have to be.
That's just where we're at with him. But I think the Packers are going to make considerable moves, and we're going to hear about them on the first week. It's not going to be the trickle down of the 3rd week of free agency of, the Packers signed a guy that I think I've heard of before. I don't know if he's really going to start. I think that, and I've believed this the whole time. I think the Packers realize, and Goody realizes, strike while the iron's hot. You definitely need your quarterback to improve and get better. But what's going to help him improve and get better is surrounding him with better players. By the way, the Davante Adams, I think Jair's more likely to be traded than Davante Adams. If we were to, I believe Ian Rappaport put that out. The Jets were seeking a trade for Davante, who has a $38 million.
Yeah, they're looking into it. I think it's unlikely. Now, the only case I would make is, can you acquire him via trade and then completely restructure that puppy?
Yeah, it just doesn't, and I could be wrong. I don't know the history of NFL trades, but trading for a guy and then asking him to take a pay cut is usually not how that works.
Correct.
Like maybe if you wanted to, you could sign him to an extension without adding like a real amount of money and like void years to get it. It doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah, so for me, I mean, it's still, in terms of that wide receiver position, it's still Davante or bust, right? Like,
you're Davante over DK.
I'm Davante over DK because I think the higher end of the potential is with Davante. Now, the long-term fix would likely be DK Metcalf, so I'd be open to it. But Davante is still my number one, yeah. Now, when it comes to him, you're right. Ian Rappaport reporting this morning or last night that the New York Jets are seeking a trade for Davante Adams prior to deciding to cut him, which they will do within the next week. It's very similar to this Deebo Samuel situation. If a trade is not agreed upon, he will be released and become a free agent and will be able to negotiate beginning Monday at 11 a.m. Central Time. The Packers, I think, and I don't think Goody has officially confirmed this because he can't talk directly about Davante Adams, but I would think Brian Gutekunst is open to the reunion with Davante Adams. It makes sense, right? He is a bona fide, proven number one wide receiver. He is a number one option for your offense and for a young quarterback who desperately needs a true number one option. He can serve as that cushion, that layover, that stopgap for a couple of years. Be the number one option while the other guys behind him continue to grow. The Jaden Reed, the Dontavian Wicks, the Romeo Dobbs. The thing I like about Davante over DK, besides the fact that I think his ceiling's a little bit higher, is you don't have to give up one of those guys in order to bring in Davante Adams. Likely, assuming you sign him in the open market, which I think would be the Packers' only shot at this. They're not going to trade for that contract. They're just not going to. And I don't expect a team that Davante Adams wants to go to will trade for that contract. Now, we remember earlier in the offseason, there was rumors that Davante Adams has kind of whittled down his options to the following: the Packers, the 49ers, the Rams, and the Chargers.
Right. Davante has a ton of leverage in terms of where he lands, because if you trade for him and he doesn't want to be there, he says, have fun paying me all 38 point whatever million dollars.
Yep.
Good luck.
Yeah.
Up to you. Like,
I mean, it just doesn't make any sense for a team to trade for him. That's especially not one of those four, and I don't think any of those four would be taking that swing.
If Davante was paid what he's owed, he would be the 12th highest paid player in the NFL and the highest paid non-quarterback.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, that was a massive contract he signed in Vegas, and then obviously they dealt him to the New York Jets this season, and then everything hit the fan for New York. So when it comes to Davante, I think he does ultimately become a free agent, and I think the Packers very much will be in the mix because I think a reunion makes sense for both sides, as has been talked about plenty this offseason. But that news is just interesting to me. I think you'll see a couple of those this week where it goes, hey, this team is looking to shop this player, and if they don't find a trade within the next couple of days, he will become a free agent come Monday, which I think will be the case for Davante. So the good news is I think you can sit and wait. And if you sit and wait and ultimately a team decides to trade for him, well, you're SOL, but I don't think you missed out. Like, at this dollar amount, it makes absolutely no sense for the Packers to trade for him.
No, Goody would.
It's just very anti-Goody. It's just not in the cards.
Paying top dollar for old players.
So here's the thing with Davante. Once again, it is sit and wait.
Yeah.
Sit and wait. But I would guess probably by Friday we know what their plan is with him.
So Brandon Ayuk has also, which is continued post-Deebo. I thought they were going to do one or the other, but it seems like the 49ers are comfortable with Jawan Jennings, George Kittle, and then Ricky Pearsall, who was the young man that was shot and managed to make it back on the field and make some plays. It seems like Ayuk is also on the trade market, which if we were to power rank Davante, And let's remove cost, because obviously cost is going to... You wouldn't have to give Ayuk a new contract. You would DK, and you would be doing no trade for Davante, but he also needs a brand new contract. Just power rank desirability, those three.
Ooh, as it stands right now, I'd probably go Davante, DK, Ayuk.
I think I'm Ayuk, DK, Davante.
So the exact inverse of me.
Yes.
Ayuk's the youngest.
Yep.
Obviously has a huge upside at a really nice
Fresh
start
off an ACL, though, so you would need some sort of certainty there on progress.
Had a really nice start to the season.
And a very, very good 2023.
Yep. But can he come back from the ACL? I mean, that's a huge question that we don't have the answer to.
I would honestly rule out him first because of the yips on injuries for Goody. Like, one of the things Jen mentioned today from the PFF article on power rankings of those free agents was DJ Reed in like 5 consecutive seasons has had 400 plus coverage snaps, which I think obviously ability and probably playing better than Sauce Gardner is the number one factor. But right after that comes, hey, are you on the field a lot? And I think the ACL thing, he might be fine because we've seen. I mean, at this point, it's more likely than not athletes are fine. But I don't, and I've been pondering this too. How much am I liking a guy more because it seems more likely that Goody would go that way versus who do I think is actually going to be better in the immediate? You know what I'm saying? Like, how much of my opinions have been colored by this is how the Packers operate, so I operate within those standards?
I would imagine quite a bit, to answer your question, because that's how I operate as well.
Right. It feels like I convince myself of things that I just think are more likely because Goody would do it versus wouldn't do it at all.
Yeah, and it's a weird place to operate because Goody has surprised us before, last offseason, right? You know, with Josh Jacobs and Xavier McKinney probably wasn't the biggest surprise. Josh Jacobs was probably more of the surprise, knowing that they needed to rebuild that safety market, but to get the top available safety was a really impressive move by Goody. Can he do that again? And will he do that again this offseason when they have some obvious needs like edge and like corner and like wide receiver? This DK Metcalf thing I'm still a little hung up on because I don't know how much I believe the report.
It's hard to parse out where that actually stands and the legit. So I believe the Packers and Seahawks have had surface level conversations about DK Metcalf.
I agree with that.
I don't think there's been any offers or any serious conversation about it. I think it's been, hey, if this contract extension doesn't go the way you would like, because it seems like DK is kind of getting paid what you would project him to make already. But as we know with contracts, it's how much is guaranteed and how much am I guaranteed money in the future versus like, I'm on this 1-year deal and you guys could do whatever with me after. So there is like the comfortability, but like I don't see him making 30 plus. Like he's not one of those guys that would be reset the market.
No.
He's not Jamar Chase, not CeeDee Lamb.
But I don't know what the compensation would be. And I really don't want to give up a Romeo Doubs as much as you said
You're hung up on Romeo?
I love the options of having the 3 young wide receivers this year with Watson out. If Watson was healthy, I'd be way more game for it.
But what if
I don't love the idea of DK Metcalf, Jaden Reed, Dontavian Wicks, that's it.
What if I don't think that's the case. What if I gave you DK Metcalf, Jaden Reed, Dontavian Wicks, and Jaden Higgins, Torrey Horton, one of the draft picks that we expect will probably be a top 100-ish?
Yeah, 2nd or 3rd round pick. I could be convinced, but I think the point in
because I do think one thing, and sorry to jump you there.
No, you're good.
I do think it was informative when they talked about wide receivers producing immediately. I do think Goody kind of having an opinion on that and offering up, like, guys are now ready to produce instantly. I do think that's
here's the thing. He might view it that way, but that's what
not every guy's that way.
That's what's bitten them in the ass the last 2 years.
Right, but we have to. Let's be honest, though. The guys.
Let's be honest.
The guys who produced early were Jaden Reed and Christian Watson.
Yep.
Watson, we've got the injuries, but Jaden Reed was also a high pick who, despite us being disappointed, it's a pretty damn good first 2 years in the NFL. at all.
I agree, Joshy.
And Dontavian Wicks hasn't produced that well, but he was a fifth?
But the reason the Packers need to add a veteran wide receiver is because the guys just haven't come along fast enough. So to move on from a guy who's entering year 4 to add a guy who's entering now year 1, that makes me a little uncomfortable. That makes me feel like the problem hasn't fully been solved. Do you have a top-level guy now if you add a DK Metcalf? The answer is obviously yes. If you added Davante Adams, the answer was obviously yes. If you add a... who else has been thrown in the mix? If you add a Brandon Ayuk, right? The answer is yes, you have a top-level guy. But if you have to give up one of those other guys that you're hoping can maybe come along and become that number 2 and develop into a long-term fix, a depth piece, that gives me a little bit of the EBGBs. Now, I have the highest hope for Jaden Reed. I think you probably still have the highest hope for a guy like Dontavian Wicks. Am I ready to move on from one of those guys with Watson on the shelf for most of the year? I don't know that I'm comfortable with that.
I just think the wide receiver 1 covers up a lot more, and I think this year was an indictment of depth doesn't really matter if you don't have studs.
I would agree with that.
And I think one guy, a Davante, a DK, an Ayuk, a T. Higgins, covers up for a lot of that because they are going to consume on any given game 8 to 10 targets, and that immediately lifts all ships. We haven't even talked about if the Packers don't come out of this offseason with we need more Tucker Kraft. I think that's an embarrassment.
I totally agree.
We have to figure in there if you add one of those established guys with the Tucker Kraft of we need this guy at the ball. Like, we're starting to run out of targets here. And at some point, Romeo Doubs isn't going to show up to work again because he only got 2 targets in 2 weeks.
I'm having deja vu. We did this last offseason.
We did, and we're going to keep doing it.
Well, Jaden Reed's your top guy, but Christian Watson needs some love. Tucker Kraft could be post for breakout season.
How sweet would it be, though, week 12 through 18, DK next to Christian Watson out there?
If Watson still got his fastball, I mean, that could be really, really fun.
Yeah. Playoffs.
Go ahead, Mora.
That would be, that would legitimately send shivers down the spine of defensive coordinators.
I agree, but I guess the thing I am so hung up on is what does the week 1 through 12 look like? Because if Watson can return and be himself, great.
Yeah. Haven't the Packers shown their ability to survive in a post non-Watson world?
They have. But are the Super Bowl good?
I don't need to win a Super Bowl week 1 through 12.
That's a good point. The Super Bowl's played in February.
Week 19, some would call it.
That would be week
19, 20, 21.
22. Week 22.
Yeah.
Week 22.
Math.
Love math. Are they going to sign Davante?
I think to me, it feels increasingly less. The more I hear them interested in options, the less I think it's likely. I think it's possible.
So you think it's more likely they trade for DK Metcalf than bring back Davante Adams?
Ooh, that's a great question. At the prices I saw thrown around this weekend, Davante's more likely.
I would agree.
If it's we can't get a deal done here, we need to find an option. I do think the Packers would have a third plus Romeo Doubs. I do think they would probably not hesitate too much on that.
Yeah, you got to give him a new contract too. Is the other part of that. So
you have the money though. That's the thing. And I mean, Zach Tom's going to be re-signed for a big number at some point, which is going to make you more cap flexible because you do the bonus.
I want to go back to something you said. You set the over/under of trades this offseason 1.5. So we assume Jair could be one.
Yes, that's the one I'm kind of just factoring in as a likely, and I don't know if that's misplaced, but.
And then it could be a DK. Could be a Max Crosby.
Could be. Trey Hendrickson.
I think that one's kind of unlikely.
Why?
I don't feel very good about that or Myles Garrett.
I feel less likely about Max than I do Hendrickson because the GM has basically said, I don't think we're going to have enough money to pay Trey Hendrickson.
And I have heard that.
Yeah.
But it's just not very Brian Gutekunst coded to trade for a 31-year-old who needs a new deal, which would be his third contract, which the Packers don't typically give. That's
fair. I think that's fair, but I also think the way Trey Hendrickson plays is indicative of a guy who can continue at that way. He's not he's not built on speed and he's not built on flexibility.
Yeah.
He's kind of a run through your effing face type guy.
Just like you.
Yeah, duh.
Tiny Ants Hunter Vaughn back at the Everlight Solar Studio has been trying to jump in. Hunter, what do you got for us?
I mean, at this point, a list, since you guys kind of flew through a lot of things that I was going to try and clean up.
Just talking ball. Just talking ball.
Just get in the weeds over here, brother.
The salary cap, the only time it's ever gone down was the 2021 season. It fell 7.92% according to Spotrac.
More than I thought.
Yeah, $15 million fall off
Post-COVID,
after the
though.
COVID.
I was right.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then it jumped up 14% from that. So that was one of them. I feel like I had something else, but forgot. But then I was also going to say, as I've mentioned a few times, I don't know if the Packers can let Davante see other teams, because I think it's that like, oh, I'm going to let you go off and see what's better. And I think there's going to be other better situations that he's going to like, namely Kansas City, or I think some other teams, and that's my concern for the Packers. It isn't that he doesn't want to be back in Green Bay. I just think he's going to see somebody else and be like, but I could play with Patrick Mahomes. And that, like, as great as Jordan Love is, I'd rather play with Pat.
Hold on. Slow down. I'm distracted now.
Oh, of course you
You're
are.
wearing a Duke sweatshirt?
Yeah, they play tonight. Play Wake Forest.
And Wake Forest is favored by 19.5 points. Big one. Run us through again, Hunter, your fandoms.
Okay. Bucks Brewers.
Play the music.
Okay. Which one do we want? I'm going to let you guys pick.
Give me some college basketball music. It's March. Give me some college basketball music. You got it? Yes. It's March, baby. Let's go.
All right. Bucks Brewers, Badgers, unless they're playing Marquette, because Marquette basketball is like number one for college basketball.
Where does Duke come in?
Hey, I'm getting there. The Blackhawks. Yeah, I like the Blackhawks, and then we know the Dallas Cowboys. Where Duke comes in is my uncle, and he's also my godfather. Back in the 90s, did some basketball camps with Christian Laettner, and that was where he like really became like a big Duke fan. And then as I started watching college hoops, he was like, yeah, I'm a Duke fan, and like talked about Laettner and those teams because he got to know some of those guys. So then it just kind of stuck, and I was like, yeah, I like Duke and whatever. And it gets Badger fans upset when I wear Duke stuff, so I just kind of lean into it more now.
Who is like your favorite college basketball player ever?
I loved Vanderblue. So with him being a Madison Memorial grad, loved getting to work with the Madison Memorial head coach Steve Collins last year at the state championships. Off air, it was just Vanderblue and Wes Matthews stories. It was great. But yeah, Vanderblue was incredible, and I wish he wouldn't have gone to the NBA.
Christian Laettner and Vanderblue.
Yeah.
Wide berth.
Wide berth indeed. Okay. All right, sorry, I was distracted by the beautiful blue sweater you have on. And
it's unmistakable.
I heard Mark Tauscher talking a little bit about your outfit this morning on Wilde and Tausch. So
I had to move desks today, or this weekend. I did. So we added a new sales teammate here in the Madison office, and then I had been a day one in my old desk.
Yeah.
And then
right in front of my old desk, yeah.
Yeah. And I rarely ever spent time looking at my monitor because I was always turned around talking to you.
Got a lot of work done, yeah?
Yep. I had to move to the desk that's right by the studio now. So now when like Tausch is in, or I'm worried about this afternoon when Matt Hamilton is in for Jim, Matt, and Molly, like I'm just going to turn into a distraction and a conversation piece on every show. So I'm going to have to like actually think about what I'm wearing now. It's going to be a whole thing. I'm not a fan.
Do you not think about what you're wearing?
Unless
Am I the
it's
only
like
one that thinks about that?
Unless it's like a team that I like. Is like,
that's why I ruled it out right away, Josh. I didn't even ask. I said that's why I went from Hunter. Do you think about it? Am I the only one that thinks about it?
You probably are, unless there's a team like Duke plays tonight. So I was like, okay, I'll wear something Duke. Other than that, I'm usually just kind of grabbing something.
I think about the clothes I purchase, and then past that,
I mean, I would hope that you at least think about what you're buying. Like that would just
But when
end
it
so
comes to-
poorly.
We're freestyling, baby.
The only time is events where I actually consider this is what I'm going to wear. But daily, but I mean, let's be honest here. You threw on a sweater today. How much thought went into that?
Not much today.
Okay.
I was slow moving today for whatever reason.
I'm going to distract us here a little bit.
Yeah, let's do it.
Am I seeing this right? That Adrian Brody at the Oscars, while approaching the stage after winning, took out what appears to be a Zyn or one of those nicotine pouches and tossed it to his wife, who just caught it?
I thought it was
I did
gum
not see this.
at the time. Also, this gets me on a whole nother thing. I'm going to really get distracted. The fact that he won Best Actor is absurd to me.
Who was up for it? I'm not a big movie guy.
Well, it doesn't even matter who was up for it. My problem is, so he won it for his character in The Brutalist, and in that movie, he portrays a man from Hungary. And they used AI to enhance his Hungarian accent. So that wasn't his performance anymore, because a part of being an actor is being able to do an authentic accent. And he won an award for it. We are destroying art. I hate it. It makes me so mad that he even was considered for this award. Off my soapbox.
I couldn't agree more. If you're doing AI, I don't want any piece of it in terms of creativity.
You're not an AI guy.
No, when it comes to the creative space, there's nothing, no matter what AI says it can do, that can replace actual creativity and the value and meaning of it. So when you are running it through a machine that's doing the creativity for you, out. Get it out of here.
Okay, interesting. Hey, little Brewers news coming in from Robert Murray. Free agent pitcher Jose Quintana in the Milwaukee Brewers are in agreement for a 1-year deal, according to sources familiar with the deal. So there you go. Little addition to the bullpen there for the Milwaukee Brewers coming through here.
Did you
I feel
see
like
the
he's going to be
breaking
making
news
a
that
lot of
Marty-
trips back and forth to Nashville. I feel like he's going to be back and forth, up and down. It's great, but
Did you see Marty Ronsky on Jen, Gabe, and Chewy announced that in the outfield at AmFam Field, there will be a big Bob Uecker signature in outfield.
Oh,
Nice.
So, amongst the many ways they are honoring Bob Uecker, which I'm sure is going to be a season-long thing, she even teased like a sort of celebration in August for them, which is going to be a much bigger thing. That the patch, obviously, which fans can go get themselves attached to any of their official licensed gear, there's going to be a giant signature in the outfield, which I think is probably a good way to do it. Behind home plate leaves a little bit to be desired.
agreed.
But when dingers going over the signature,
Yeah, I wonder
that's
if
going to be cool.
I wonder if they hit a home run and they'll pipe in some Bob Uecker sound in the stadium. Would be my
right.
guess.
I mean, we know they already have the get out of here in left field. As
right
part
by
of
the slide.
Yeah.
Interesting. Okay. Let's go back to the Packers.
Well,
How about them?
I just have another question now because I got distracted and I'm
Okay.
finally talking here on
clearly.
the show.
Adrian Brody to the Brewers to what else?
Yeah. Well, so the Bob Uecker patch, I really want one, but the 2 jerseys that I have are not officially licensed, so they won't do it.
Do you know that for a fact? You won't know unless you ask.
No, you know when your gear's licensed.
No. That's not what I'm saying. They say
Oh, they're not going to do it to anything. No,
they won't.
No.
So if I bring like a blanket,
they
wouldn't help a brother out.
No, I bet you could probably purchase the
patch and do it yourself.
Okay.
if you wanted to, like, people put it on like jean jackets. Famously, get a lot of patches attached to them.
You should be a jean jacket guy.
I used to be. I lost it a few years ago, and it was great too. I had it broken in, had the wear marks. Oh, it's good stuff. Breaking into new ones, tough job.
Did you have patches on them?
No patches.
Okay, we didn't make you a patches guy.
My dad had a jean jacket that had a patch for every Olympics that was held in the U.S. He never went to any of them, but he would buy the patch if they were in the U.S.
But he had the patches.
Yep.
It's good. It's good. All right, let's get to this little Friday news dump, shall we? Packers announcing Friday afternoon about 3 o'clock that they will be increasing ticket prices. Now, the other thing, and the one that really caught my eye, was the fact that the organization is continuing its non-renewal exercise, which they've done the last couple of years. So what that means is the organization declines to renew the season tickets of accounts that have sold 100% of their regular season tickets for multiple seasons. Good. I mean, I've obviously hosted Green Bay Game Day before every Packers game the last couple of seasons. And I brought it up on like every show when we were up in Green Bay for home games. It seems like every season more and more and more opposing fans are showing up to home games. I'm so behooved by the fact that powder blue.
That not the right word. Dismayed.
So dismayed that Honolulu blue is everywhere.
Moved.
Shaken. Surprised.
Not even close. I believe
behooved is more. Yeah, it's more. It's like an obligation.
Yeah, a duty or a responsibility for someone to do something it is incumbent on.
You heard me say behooved and didn't know the context I said it and tried to repeat it. That's what happened. Because I said behooved, what is it, a week or two ago? And you went, oh. And you said, I'm going to give it a try. I'm going to roll the dice, see if it works.
I am behooved. To widen my vocabulary.
Yes. As a professional broadcaster, that would be a good idea.
Yeah.
You brusted that. That was a brust moment.
I hate this show. I hate
no,
it
you
here.
don't.
You thought you were going to sneak it by us.
I am behooved to continue talking about season tickets. So the Packers are going to be revoking tickets from fans that have sold, again, 100%. So every single ticket to regular season games for at least 2 seasons. Which, again, I say this is a good move by the Packers because it makes no sense to me why they have the longest season ticket wait list in the history of professional sports. And people are just trying to turn a profit on it. Look, I get trying to make some money back if you sell a couple of your games. Because if you are part of the, is it the green package, you get 6 games. And if it's the gold package, you get 2 or 3 games. You get a certain amount of tickets, a little bit less the Milwaukee package. If you are selling, let's say you get 6 home games, all right? Let's just call it 6 for the sake of the argument. If you are getting 6 home games a year and you get 4 tickets to those 6 games and you are selling all 4 tickets to all 6 games for multiple years just trying to make some money, I just don't think you deserve to have the tickets anymore.
Right. So from my understanding, the people who actually do that, according to Aaron Popke, Jason Wilde spoke with him, it was like less than 1%, which makes sense. Like, how often are people selling 100% of tickets? I think
it's more common than you realize.
Well, I mean, I just told you it was less than 1%, so that would indicate that
he wasn't
not
listening
that common.
to you, Josh. Come on.
That's true. Hunter's right. But Hunter's right. Now,
I think so.
I think it's about 400 people got their tickets revoked, is my understanding.
Yeah, which is fair, understandable. There's a lot. Was it 80,000 people in Lambeau?
In Lambeau, but those aren't all season ticket holders. But
so at that point, what I think is connected here is that 15 of the past 16 years, the cost of going to a Green Bay Packers game has gone up.
Sure has.
I think the fact that the Packers tout we are right in the middle of the pack in terms of what it costs to go to a game, I think is laughable and frankly embarrassing. What do we know about Green Bay? It is the smallest in all of professional sports in terms of market.
That is correct.
So therefore, that would tell you the cost being in the middle would make it exorbitantly more expensive in comparison to, say, a New York City or a San Francisco or a Dallas. So to be in the middle, I think, is an insult to fans. And I think the reason you see so many more Detroit Lions fans, or name whatever one people got outraged about and got mad at the Milwaukee package who saved the Packers in Green Bay, it's because it's becoming more and more unaffordable. Now, everyone's going to throw in your face there's a long list of people who are willing to pay it. Yes, but part of being a fan isn't just having the people who have the most amount of money, discretionary income, go to games. I would argue most diehard fans aren't in the top 10% of earners, because most of the people who earn tons of money got other things to worry about than people like us who can get mad at things happening in sports games. So to me, I don't think the Packers should be proud of the fact they're in the middle. I think they should be in the bottom quarter.
But here's the thing. They're really not in the middle. If you look at average ticket price for 2023, they rank third. If you look at the average ticket price for 2024, now this counts retail and resale price, they are sixth.
Yeah.
They're in the top 10 every year.
Yeah.
So to say we are in the middle of the pack.
Face value is
correct. I understand that. But it's still not affordable. It's still not very true.
Right.
To begin with.
It's damn near $1,000 to take a family to a Green Bay Packers game.
And that's just.
Which is not really an option for many people.
That is not an option for most people.
That is the vast majority of people, even, you could say. It is not something you can really do. And you have that long list, which obviously makes it, well, nobody's going to stop paying because there are 100,000 plus people waiting to get their opportunities at tickets. But I do think there is a difference between right and wrong and moral obligation. If you want to be community owned, you want to throw that in our face. You want to charge us when you decide, hey, we need to do a fundraising for the Packers stock you sell that holds no real value other than the pride and the piece of paper they send you in the mail. Mm-hmm. I think you have an obligation to your fans to do better by them. Now, last year, the Green Bay Packers made $60 million of profit. We know that because as a community-owned entity, they have to tell us those numbers.
They do.
So if the Packers were to freeze ticket prices, next year they make, what, $55 million? That gets added to their corporate fund that I believe is upwards near $500 million.
Sounds about right.
So what are we doing? Are we lining the pockets of this corporate fund that contains masses and masses of just liquid money to be used as they please? Or, like, what's the point? When is that bank account, which obviously it can't be in one bank account, the FDC only supplies so much. Do you know how much it is?
No.
Do you know how much they're obligated to, if there were to be severe movement in banks, how much you would keep if you put $1 million into the bank?
Anyway, I feel like this problem with the ticket prices...
200,000.
500.
So half of it?
500,000, yes.
So it's half of whatever you put in?
No, it is up to $500,000.
But you could put over $500,000 in the bank account.
Did you go to school?
Josh, you think I've ever dealt with $500,000 before?
Well, we had a Great Depression.
You think about it? Okay. Anyway, I think that this ticket issue is a
70 years unborn.
This ticket price issue, I think, is a league-wide thing. Because, like, I just, 2 seasons ago now, went down to Dallas to go to my first game, and just off of the tickets and getting to the stadium, for my wife and I, it was $1,000. Like, that was a once in a lifetime. We were saving to go and do that. And the league, like, because people are going to keep going to these games, and there will be people that will spend the money on it, unless the fans really do something to say, hey, this isn't okay, and, like, actively don't buy merchandise, actively choose to not go to games, I don't think they're going to change anything. They don't have a reason to.
The difference here is Jerry Jones and John Mara and name the NFL owners under no obligation to their community the same way the Packers are and should be. Seen as the community saved them, the community supports them, and the community is a reason why they are able to classify themselves as a nonprofit organization, which is one of the funniest things you could ever determine. So, to me, yes, I understand how that works, and everything's more expensive. It's less and less affordable to attend a sporting event at all. Mm-hmm. Every one of them is more and more expensive now than it ever was before. But when you tout community owned and you throw it in our face and you use it to your advantage, but don't provide those advantages down the line to your fans and the people who are a reason you exist as a franchise, that to me is the big difference. And I think that's an obligation that ever since Mark Murphy took over, he has fallen drastically and embarrassingly short of.
I like it. All right, a couple more things to cover before we get out of here. Number one, we are 13 days away from Selection Sunday. You locked in, Joshy?
No. I've been watching a lot more hoops.
That's good.
I don't view Selection Sunday as all that interesting, and I know they try and sell it to us and make it a big thing. I do. Where are the Badgers? Where are Marquette? Who am I picking to win it all?
I think we got a good shot to see them together in Cleveland.
I've seen that. But I've also seen that what feels like, in Hunter, I don't know if you feel the same way. I feel like we get teased on the second or third round potential matchup for the Badgers and Marquette for like 15 years, and it just never happens.
It probably won't happen, but
I feel like they actively try and avoid that. Like, you don't see rivalries getting put in the same area. Like, that's why Duke, North Carolina only happened once.
And you usually have to meet way later.
Yeah, and it was in the Final Four,
yeah.
to Hunter's point. That was the end of Coach K's career, by the way. The final game he ever played was in the NCAA tournament. Lost to UNC. How fun is that?
That one hurts.
Marquette wins Saturday, gets a big win on Saturday on the road at Georgetown, which was a much-needed turnaround. Georgetown?
Georgetown.
You
not
added
the
to Georgetown.
Georgetown?
Yeah, like the president.
76-61 the final there. David Joplin finished with 17. Cam Jones 13 and 13 in the win for Marquette. 13 assists, that is, with 13 points on Saturday. So a nice win to get back on track and to get the ball in the hoop a little bit more than they had been able to. Marquette coming in this week, I believe, at number 20 in the AP poll. Now back-to-back wins for the Golden Eagles. A 30-point win last Wednesday or Tuesday against Providence, 82-52, and then going Georgetown on Saturday, winning by 15. Now, they close out their schedule with this. Wednesday, they go to UConn, who is a team that could really use a win against a ranked opponent. Now, UConn is certainly not the UConn they've been the last couple of years. They likely will still make the tournament, but they are looking like a sneaky 8 or 9 seed yet, maybe even a 10 seed in this year's NCAA tournament. So UConn, not necessarily on the bubble, but they are certainly closer than they have been, obviously, in past years. Then the Marquette Golden Eagles will wrap up their season Saturday at Fiserv Forum by hosting 6th-ranked St. John's. It is the highest St. John's has been in the AP poll in 30 years. So a really good St. John's team that's already clinched the Big East. They come to Fiserv to wrap up the regular season for Senior Day on Saturday. As for Wisconsin, they go to the Breslin Center to take on Michigan State on Saturday. At the time, 8th-ranked Michigan State. No Max Klesmit in that game, who showed up to Breslin wearing a boot, so he did not play. The Badgers made it interesting, but Michigan State, the Spartans, end up pulling away at the end of that game. The Badgers just could not put the ball through the hoop. They look like the old Badgers, only scoring 62 points in 9-point loss, 71-62 the final. In that one, Nolan Winter having an unbelievable game on the boards, by the way. 17 rebounds for the big fellas to go along with 12 points. You can hear from Nolan Winter Thursday on the Jump Around with Jim Rutledge and Pablo Iglesias. 2 games left also for Wisconsin. Wednesday they go to Minnesota, and then Saturday they return home to host Penn State in the regular season finale. These are 2 teams who I mentioned, Wisconsin number 12 in this week's AP poll, Marquette number 20, who have high hopes come tournament time, but 2 teams that need to turn it around from some ugly showings here down the stretch as we enter the month of March. So 2 more opportunities here in the regular season, and then ultimately the Big East and Big Ten tournaments respectively coming up next week.
So I've heard reports of your weekend. Some of them you reported to me, some of them you haven't.
Okay.
Did you watch the Badgers game?
I did.
One of the more frustrating watching experiences, that second half.
Yeah.
In large part, all of it. But that 4 for, what did they finish? 4 for 28?
Something
from
like
3-point line.
Overall from 3, they were 5 of 32.
I mean, it was
15%.
It was as bad as you. And I mean, missing shots is missing shots. I don't think a lot of them were even bad shots.
No,
but the way Michigan State was also able to get to the hoop, it felt like there was an alley-oop every 3rd possession. And it's what are we doing out here, boys?
They had a couple yams. I mean, they had a couple sweet yams, by the way.
It was like no one can get to the hoop for the Badgers, and all they're doing is getting what feels like free points.
Brian Butch in the pregame for the Badgers radio network, he talked about how Michigan State might be able to do that So just had to shout out that he sounded like a genius for that call. As far as Marquette goes, then too, like with these Badgers, like these last 2 games for Marquette are going to be like tournament games for them. They have to go and show that they can actually compete with UConn's probably the quality team they're going to see in the second round. St. John's, I mean, that's like a Sweet 16, Elite 8 level team. So you need to go out there and compete with them and play well against them to show, oh, yeah, we can actually still make a deep run. If they don't, I'm not picking them after the first round. And then Wisconsin, I just feel like it's Minnesota and Penn State. Go play decently well, get your shot back, take care of business, and get into the Big Ten tournament, and then just like get yourselves healthy again. Which I would much rather be in the Wisconsin spot. Like that game was ugly. They hadn't really been shooting great the last few games here, but they're still in a far better spot. And I hate the position that Marquette's in now, because they're all of a sudden they went from being a potential 3-4 seed to now they're looking at like a 7, maybe an 8 seed. And I hate that.
To show you how much Breslin can throw you after game, 62 points is the lowest the Badgers have scored all year. And again, that's kind of the Badgers you're used to watching. 63 was the previous low, but 62 is the lowest they've scored all season when they go to Michigan State, when they went to Michigan State on Saturday. Now, again, you were missing Max Klesmet, which I will cut you a little bit of slack for because he is one of your leaders, one of your longest tenured starters. He's a good player. So when you're without him, obviously that throws you out of your funk a little bit. It was a team that was in the game despite the aforementioned by Joshy, the shooting struggles. I mean, they couldn't make anything go in from beyond the arc, and it was Brick City for most of that game. They were in it throughout, and then those last couple minutes, Michigan State pulls away with the alley-oops and some of the yams that they had. So couple of opportunities coming up this week for both of those teams before they get into conference tournament time. Milwaukee waits their opponent in the Horizon League tournament. Milwaukee finishing with the 3 seed. So Bart Lundy and company still got a shot, but they got to win the Horizon League tournament to get there. And our boy Doug Gottlieb, who was on the screen for some reason.
I've just decided he's going to be the show's face for March. Like, that's just anytime we're talking college hoops.
His March is likely going to come to an end in the next 48 hours. So
no one wants to see them. It's going to be a deep run.
Preston Rudinger, he broke something in his hand, I believe, and he's going to play tomorrow for Green Bay, which is nuts. But they're not getting Anthony Roy back, who was at
the point.
Was at one point the leading scorer.
He's a competitor, Josh.
Saging?
Who?
Did you see Dougie Gottlieb saging the arena and I believe the locker room?
And like they got to win after it.
The sage,
he was doing like some voodoo stuff?
Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome.
That's full desperation.
Brother,
the only other person I've seen do that is Kyrie Irving.
I respect the hell out of that, actually.
They got to win after it, though, so it works.
He better start doing it a lot the next couple of weeks. You learned something new today. We learned something new today. Time now for what we learned here on Mr. Relevant. And I learned wrestling is back, boys.
Jeez.
Wrestling is back. The John Cena heel turn, one of the more viewed clips in wrestling history, as John Cena wins the Elimination Chamber Saturday night to punch his ticket to WrestleMania. He will take on WWE Champion Cody Rhodes. They embrace after the match. The Rock then runs the thumb across the neck to Cena. And Cena kicks Rhodes where the sun don't shine. And John Cena and The Rock are aligned now.
Cool.
The Rock has apparently never seen this throat slash motion before in his life.
Yeah, he did. It did look a little unnatural.
It looked like he was like trying to carve the Joker smile into himself while doing it.
It was a sight.
It feels like so straightforward.
Yeah, it feels like a pretty easy thing to
I feel like I knew that at like 6.
Yeah, me too.
I've watched movies and stuff.
Yeah, well, The Rock's been around movies a little bit, so you'd think he knows how to do that. But yeah, I mean, this is causing more buzz than ever. John Cena in his illustrious 22-year WWE career has never officially been a bad guy. So this is a new era as we go through the John Cena retirement tour. Joshy, does that move the needle for you one bit?
No.
Hunter, does that move the needle for you one bit?
No, I was kind of falling asleep there.
All right, well, I tried. Anybody else?
On what we learned?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I watched a lot of the NFL Combine.
Sorry to hear that.
and I didn't learn this, but I
More
forecasted
entertaining than
this.
Res
The
Holding.
Packers, the Packers are going to take a running back higher than anyone thinks. There is probably 12 guys that you could slot into the top 100 picks. I think the Packers obviously have Marshawn Lloyd, but as we know, with the way they drafted A.J. Dillon, and they've made multiple attacks at that position, and the way they focus on the run, Josh Jacobs is here for another year, guaranteed, and that's about it. Who knows what becomes of Josh Jacobs after this year? I think...
You got faith in Marshawn Lloyd? I got faith in Marshawn Lloyd.
I don't.
Okay.
Not like I'm ready to give up on him, but I saw him play 10 snaps. So that isn't anything. I'm far from banking on him. There was just...
I think this will end up being a big year for him. Continue.
In terms of the combine, there was so many guys that just lit up the scores in terms of athleticism that I think the Packers end up with one earlier than we all think.
Are you full-blown draft mode, Joshy, now?
Yes.
Okay, I like it.
I have to keep an eye on free agency and trades, obviously, but yeah, I've been in there grinding. I've already looking at who fit the Packers thresholds in terms of
Looking
wide
at the
receivers.
tape a little bit?
Yeah, when you see like a Tootin out of Virginia Tech, didn't watch much of him, but
You just like his last name.
well, when he went and destroyed and had like one of the fastest speed scores, which is basically just weight plus miles per hour that you reach in your 40.
Yeah.
I said, probably a guy I should know something about. You know, go figure out. Yeah. It's fun when guys give you a at the combine. You go,
I do like that.
I didn't know you.
Now, here's the thing, Joshy. I think I did that for a lot of people last week. A lot of people went,
No.
Oh, yeah, when you ran a 3-cone, yeah.
Different version of,
I think a lot of people went, ow, that looked painful, and that's embarrassing.
I'm going to return to the. I'm returning to the scene of the crime this week. I'm going to play a little pickleball.
Didn't you return on Sunday?
No, I didn't play.
Oh, wow.
I had Sunday Karma, 10 to noon, ESPN, Wisconsin.
Tough.
It is what it is. Hunter, what'd you learn?
We're going to head out to the Beehive State. We have a highlight from some women's basketball.
Beehive State.
You'll see.
And over. It looked like a potential jump ball. They don't call it. Wilkie.
That was
Utah.
Maddie Wilkie for Utah, formerly of Beaver Dam High School, with the game winner over their rivals BYU over the weekend. So I learned Maddie Wilkie
Beehive
is still
State.
a dog. The state of Utah. That's their nickname.
Strouf, when you think of Utah, what are the first 3 things that come to mind?
Mormons,
Okay.
Brigham Young University,
Okay.
Still Mormons.
my buddy Hawken, my college roommate who lives in Salt Lake City.
I was going to say soaking.
That will do it for us today.
Well, hang on.
Good
I was
Lord.
going to... Corey and Wally are going to have Maddie Wilkie on the Damn Sports Show at 4:45
Shut
to talk about the game winner. So you should tune into that.
Just end the show.
Disgusting human beings.
Just end the show. We'll talk to you Wednesday. Peace.